This is Room in the Trees, a podcast about living a creative life. Room in the Trees is hosted by Sabrina Ward-Harrison and me, Trent Reynolds.
Show notes including pictures, links, video, and more for every episode can be found at roominthetrees.com.
If you like this podcast, please consider showing your support. You can become a subscribing patron at patreon.com/room.
And now, here's this week's episode.
I got really nervous just now.
It can all go away, Sean, and none of this that you got to understand. This is low expectations.
Awesome. That I perform actually really well with when the expectations are low.
What was the Saturday Night Live thing you were saying, Sean, about?
Oh, lowered expectations. I don't remember the exact skit, and it may not have come from Saturday Night Live. It might have been like Mad TV, but I remember late 80s that there was some skit that had two people walking on the beach, it was like silhouettes, and that was the catch, was lowered expectations. And whatever it was that their hitch, it was hilarious. So we were talking about something the other day, and it was it kind of came out as that. So
like a dating thing or
something?
Oh
yeah, no, yeah. Totally.
Like,
lowered expectations.
Well, I'll tell you what I feel strongly about right now in this moment, and that is salt and vinegar kettle chips.
Oh my God.
How do we feel about these?
Yeah, 100%.
Are you guys on board with the salt and vinegar? Do you have a favorite brand?
So let me just say one thing about salt and vinegar. That used to be only in Canada years ago in the 80s.
Really?
And they weren't here. And so when I'd go to Canada, it'd be the special thing because we'd get the Lay's or the Munchies, I think was the brand. And it was so exciting to go get the salt and vinegar chips. They would call
really?
And then they came
Way
here
to
in like
go,
the 90s.
Canada.
Right?
Right?
I'll be honest, I like anything that's kettle chipped. If it's the jalapeno, but I never liked anything that had vinegar, obviously pickles, but I never cared for anything like that. And then it turns out that I'm a huge fan of the salt and vinegar.
Me too. I haven't tried the jalapeno. Do I need to try the jalapeno?
I'm telling you, if you haven't already tried it, you haven't really lived. So I'm going to need to just press pause, run to the store, get a bag of those, and a 2-liter of Mountain Dew. You won't feel good when you're done, but trust me, it's on the bucket list.
Mountain Dew. Oh, that sounds dangerous.
Oh my God.
Take you straight to heaven on that one.
Right?
Well, I'm so happy to have this conversation happening.
Likewise. Do you want to introduce our guest?
Yes. Oh.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. The love of my life, Sean McCabe.
Oh yeah, how about that?
I told Trent he's been in the know since the like right after the time that happened Into Action.
Oh, nice.
And we talked about it on the podcast. We had to delete it all out.
Why?
Because
it
was
too much.
Privacy considerations. Yeah, right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah. So I'm Sean.
That does not mean that I am lacking detail. I require some details from Sean's point of view, please.
Oh, where should we begin, Trent?
Probably at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can go on and on when it comes to talking about how we met, because we've known each other. We've run in the same circles for years, and it wasn't until this past summer when. And we didn't know this at the time, but we had both come to a place in our lives where we were absolutely accepting of the fact that we were going to do whatever was in front of us and stop worrying about relationships and just be the best us that we could be individually. And we came to a point where neither one of us needed anything from anyone else. That we're perfectly comfortable in our own skin. And it's like, I won't say magic, but it was at that point that we found each other and found that not only were we good by ourselves, but we were better together. So yeah, it was awesome. It was one of those, to be honest with you, Trent, I've tried to carry myself with an air of dignity and integrity, and I caught myself staring at this woman, and I don't ever do that. You can ask anybody in the circles we run in. I'm a very respectful man, and I don't know. I was sitting on my motorcycle and I was staring at this lady, kind of mesmerized. And then we locked eyes, and I kind of shook my head and was like, "Oh my God, what was that?" And I just kind of wrote it off. And then that was a Tuesday, and by Friday we had seen each other again. And it was a very similar situation. I was sitting out on my motorcycle, and she came out of a church, and we just, how about that?
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I can't really explain it. I just.
So if I'm understanding correctly, your dignity and integrity was compromised
Exactly
by
somebody had
the
taught me.
sheer attraction that
Yes.
You felt for Sabrina. That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
I absolutely love loving her.
Oh.
It comes naturally. There's a ringtone on my phone. I don't know who the guy is that sings the song, but he sings this song. It says, "You make it easy." Something along those lines. It's a country song. And every time it comes on, it's hard for me to answer the phone because it's her. It's her. I want to savor every moment. It's weird because like the last 6 months or so have gone by. It seems like 6 or 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time slowed down when we started dating.
So you guys exchanged this gaze, and then what was the first conversation? What was the topic of conversation, or how did you guys start that off?
So Sean, so I came out of the church. I said to him, and I said that on the podcast, I said, "This is a whole situation right here." Him by his Harley. And then I mentioned something about leaving for being. Somehow I found out that I was an artist, and he said, "So are you someone like I could look up and, you know, you're you like a real artist or something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can look it up." Mm-hmm. So he went home, I guess, and looked it up. Friended me on Facebook, and when he friended me, I looked to see if maybe he's just friends with all the girls on Facebook that we know, and he didn't have that. And I messaged my friend Marissa. And I was just like, it was curious. I could tell there's this way deep in my heart that from the very beginning, I just felt like I knew something had happened that was irreversible. That was just, that it all was somehow making sense as much as it was sort of all surprising. It was also completely like, I felt life happening to me right then. So he sent me a really loving message about, the fear of not doing versus, and you and I talk about this on the podcast, that whole idea of like the risk of not doing versus what could happen if you actually do. The fear of rejection is worth taking that risk.
The pain of not knowing was far greater than the fear of rejection.
Yeah. And he said, 1,000 apologies if I overstepped something, and I've never done this, and either way, it's God's will, and regardless.
Yeah. So the theme of the entire relationship thus far has been that I would rather the truth separate us than a lie hold us together. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that's going on, if it's a fear, mm-hmm. which is entirely different than any other relationship, because we put on these masks when we go out in the world and we want people to like us. We want to present our best self. And I found that my best self is an honest one that shows all my warts and all my wrinkles. And that if there's anything, if I have a fear, if I have a doubt, if I have joys and whatnot, that I share all of that with Sabrina. And it's unlike any relationship I've ever been in, where she's created a world where I can be my true self. I don't have to be a chameleon and be what I think she wants me to be, because what she wants me to be is me. Mm-hmm. And that's, I don't know, that's liberating. So I'm finding out who I actually am by being in this relationship and healing so many harms, so many hurts, whether it's childhood or regrets or any of that stuff that I'm able to heal. So it's kind of weird. I don't know what you've got going on in your little world right there, but we're sitting at the same table, kind of locked eyes, and it's awesome.
I'm not.
All right.
I'm not part of that moment, unfortunately.
You are though.
I can't lock eyes with the two of you or
Right?
be the fly on the wall, but no, but it's always wonderful to hear stories like this, and especially stories that happen in the right way, like when things feel really healthy and truthful.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about on the podcast over the course of the last 5 years about moments of resonance, where either you resonate with a process, with a material, with some method of creation, or with another person, and how wonderful, and like it feels like those are the moments when creativity is at its best, right? Like, and just listening to you talk, Sean, it's like you space opens up when it's done right, and when things are open and honest, space is there for you to become more of who you are, like a more to expand and become even bigger.
That's
I don't know, I
awesome.
think there's something about that resonance that is creative, that is additive, like or expansive. It's kind of wonderful to hear the story of you both becoming more deeply yourself in the process of learning each other. That's fantastic.
Well said, Trent.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
And also a little bit more badass too. This is a whole other component too. I'm wearing my Harley Davidson socks as we sit here.
Oh, I want to hear more about the badassery. What is the motorcycle was? Wasn't that part of your initial response? Was the badassery of Sean?
Yeah.
Sean, how do you feel about your? Well, I would suspect that you don't necessarily feel like a
No,
badass, but
not at all.
that's part of being a badass, is that you don't
Yeah.
recognize, right? How you don't recognize it.
I'm a very humble guy. Just ask me.
That's right.
No, you're absolutely right. It's. I'll tell you, to to see myself through her eyes gives me confidence in just again being me, and I dig that she digs it. I don't. There's so many little things that you don't even recognize, and to have somebody around that sees the little stuff, the little quirks, the things that other people might find odd, she's just overwhelmingly attracted with. Then I got to say I'm the same way. Yeah, I don't consider myself a badass by any stretch of the imagination, but I dig that she does.
Well, I think you need to tell us a little bit more about kind of what you're about. I mean, you're about the Harley.
Yeah.
What
Well,
else?
see, now
What
that's
else
not the
is?
only thing.
And let me back up just by saying the badass. Like I didn't know Sean. I didn't know Sean's heart. I didn't know his. I don't know all the things I know of him now. Reflecting on the badass part, he is badass. But that was the initial great to look at, and he's great on his bike, and so there was that initial, just like he had an initial attraction to that, but that's the whole person, the whole, like I don't sit around thinking of like, oh, I'm dating some badass, not dating, I'm marrying some badass.
Well, we're not saying that he's one dimensional. There are many dimensions to Sean.
Yeah,
but it is a
but I
pretty
never would have
fantastic
guessed in my
dimension.
life I would end up with such a total badass hunk of a guy. It's just
That's awesome.
It's ridiculous. It's
So
fantastic.
So, granted that this is not the only attraction to Sean, nor would I say that it's is his defining or most prominent characteristic. All the same, I want to know more.
Right on.
We got the Harleys. I know it is. Can I ask? Is there a loyalty to Harley Davidson, or is it?
No, and I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
I have a '77 Shovelhead, which is Harley Davidson. I have a 2013 Road Glide, which is what we have been riding on this fall.
So Harley.
Yeah, Harley Davidson Road Glide, which is a touring bike, very comfortable. But then I also have two Hondas because there's stuff you can do on a Honda you just can't do on a Harley. So I have a 2017 CBR 1000 RR, and then I also have a I also have a, I guess it's probably like 2014 CB 1000R. So totally
And
different riding.
what can you do on those bikes that you can't do on your Harleys?
185 miles an hour.
There you go.
There you go.
It's pretty badass, Sean.
Well, and see now, here's the deal. I don't have a fear of a lot of stuff, but my natural inkling to go fast and die hard kind of attitude, is changing.
Mhm.
It's changing. I've had me for the longest time that I had to worry about, and I'm so comfortable with everything in my life. I'm so blessed that I really don't have any fear of what comes after. Um, but I'm kind of digging being here. I'm by no means. I don't have any suicidal tendencies, so I've never driven fast in the hope that something bad would happen. But the thought that I can miss out on the next couple of years has caused me to not want to drive so fast. To be entirely honest, I got a lot of catching up to do. So there's there's a there's a want to be right here, right now, and to be present in this very moment that I've had glimpses of in the past, but it seems like that's more and more what I want is just to be right here, right now, in this moment with Sabrina, obviously.
Sure. It's interesting to think that, we spend a lot of time, especially I see it in my kids all the time. It's, kind of just part of being a kid, I guess, is trying to grow up and wanting to be the older kid and wanting to do the next thing, that is there for you to experience. But, you know, we don't often talk about, I guess we do often talk about just the joy of, or the importance of just arriving and allowing yourself to
Yeah, we
arrive,
don't have.
and you talk about like being present, like it's an easy thing to say, but I think a much more difficult thing to kind of pinpoint until you actually feel it. I think I've
Yeah.
had a similar type of feeling. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm cutting you off.
The the thought one moment I can think of that comes to mind is when I was walking Liv to kindergarten once, just a couple of years ago, and holding her hand, and she would, kind of jump, and I would swing her so she could jump a long distance. And there was this kind of desperation that happened, like that feeling came where I was like, I wanted so badly for that not to stop, for that moment not to stop, and then, it's so easy to fast forward and think of when she's a teenager and she'll no longer, obviously be the size and have a desire to hold my hand and let me walk her to class, but there is that kind of tangible feeling of being present and so invested in just the current, moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, wonderful to hear.
What I was noticing for myself is that there's a wonderful Charles Dickens line about you. I wish you to know you were the very last dream of my soul. And I love that. When I read that a month or so ago, I felt that resonated for me because the peace I have in my life now, I'm so glad I met Sean now at 44, 43, no, 44, where there's nowhere I need to go travel to. There's no accolades I need to have. There's nothing, there's a very peaceful sense of this relationship and this life right now there's nowhere else and nothing else needs to happen. So not them saying it's on this relationship, but the fact that this is just this complete something for me that's deep and I didn't dream of this.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
I would have sold myself short.
Yeah. Right.
But what's interesting is that I actually did take time a number of years back to put together something like an ideals list, something that attributes of a relationship and of a partner. And in doing so, you put together the best qualities you can think of that you would like in a partner, and then try to aspire to them yourself. That idea that like begets like. And to be honest with you, I've come out the other side a better man as a result of it. And then, lo and behold, as soon as I kind of stopped looking around, well, it wasn't as soon as I stopped looking around, but she showed up in my life. So, yeah. I think it really does come down to whatever it is, whatever season of life we're in, to try and enjoy this moment right here, whatever that is. And
Right.
yeah,
Even when it's all the unknown and all the all the fear and all the like. Even today at work, I said to Megan as we're thinking about Liberate 2.0 coming, and I said, Megan, there's so much we have to do and figure out, but I know we're going to be sitting there high-fiving each other,
mm-hmm.
and it's going to be happening. And so I'm trying for right now to just be in the fact that it feels this way. There's a lot, we don't know, but it's to not be let stress or frustration lead anything, because it's all going to figure itself out,
Right.
So
I think just because we're on the podcast and I'm thinking about art making. It just
yes.
being an art teacher.
Yeah.
There are moments when I see students and I can see the frustration of not being more able to do what they want to do, right? Like to make the painting, to have the skill to be able to render the way they want to render. And I think part of my enjoyment is, or I don't know, I guess I'm kind of getting at the same thing that you guys are talking about, is like part of really understanding the joy of creation and making art is like getting to the place where you're not worried about what you're not, is just allowing yourself to enjoy the place that you're at. Like, I'm not worried that I don't know how to paint like Rembrandt.
Right.
I'm just enjoying the fact that I've got two hands and I can smush the paint around on the canvas. And it's like, it's also about being present, I guess, and not having anxiety about what I have not yet become. Does that make sense?
That's phenomenal. Are you kidding me?
Like,
That's absolutely on point. It's
yeah,
nice articulation of that.
I think it happens at like a macro scale, and like on a life timeline, but also just like in each individual moment. I think when you're trying to sort through just being a person.
What is that for you right now, Trent?
Well, that's a little harder. You're asking me to think about. I had a bit of a rough day,
Did you?
I don't want to get into it. Yeah, just teaching photography to high school and middle school kids was a little hard today. And I much rather occupy your life for a few minutes. No, it's a good question. I'm not sure.
I wanted to touch on that for just a second. That if you're sharing something that you're passionate about and that you absolutely love and you honor it, and it's like, all right, so I build houses and I've gotten well enough at it that I'm able to teach other people how to do it. And I take something that I'm so passionate about, and then if there's somebody there that kind of just could care less, I mean that really hurts, to be honest with you. And I thought about classes in school, and that I took art classes that I wasn't, I thought it would be an easy elective or whatever that I wasn't passionate about. And I wonder just how painful that is to try and share something that you're that passionate about with somebody who could care less. Now, hopefully that's not your situation. It made me,
No,
obviously, you
that
say
is the
something and makes me think
definition.
about me.
That is the definition of middle school and high school is could not care less. It was like, I mean, I remember when I was in high school, what you care about is like the kids around you and who's looking at you and who you're looking at, But yeah, no, that's definitely part of it. Is I'm a person that invests a lot of who I am in kind of in teaching, and it's really hard for me when I feel like I'm not, like, nobody cares.
Yeah, I can see that.
One thing that's, as far as like Sean the craft. One thing I've loved watching is when he's building, he'll sometimes Marco Polo with me to show me his process and his progress on certain parts of the house, and just the careful, circumspect, and focus he has, and compared to my like, which I mean, I get into my zone for sure, but I really admired watching how he works, and uh, it's fascinating to me.
Would you say that I don't know, how would you say that you're two, one being more precise and one being more stream of conscious? Is that a maybe I'm going to get myself in
Well,
trouble. I don't know what I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more.
for me, it's very calming to me to have his sense of organization, or somehow like it's very, very grounding to me. Well, we're gonna get married.
Yay!
And that falls under the like my reveal earlier. This idea that we're living together down the road. That
Oh,
we'll be in the two houses, and that you'll keep this place for the studio.
right.
And whatever God's got in store for us is better than anything we could have planned.
Yeah.
That kind of leads into, a friend of mine had asked me if I'd actually proposed. That I maybe had the cart before the horse, because I was already deciding of an addition and having a ring made and all this lovely stuff. And he says, did you actually ask her to marry you? And I was, well, sure. Not really, but we both understand that that's where this was going, and maybe you should do that. So it just happened to have taken place on Valentine's Day, where um, we did the conversation followed by the question, and I don't know.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's natural.
Sean, have you met your dad?
I did.
Yeah.
He actually went for a motorcycle ride on my
Awesome.
road glide, and I put him in a snowmobile suit, and he wasn't feeling well that day. He had a bit of a cold. He had come into town and wasn't feeling great, but he kind of sacrificed in order to solidify whatever, and went for a ride. And it was great. It was great meeting him and Gretchen. It was wonderful. And I met Sabrina's mom.
We went to California.
Went to California. It was in Pasadena. I was talking about that a little bit ago. And it's awesome. So everybody's very cool, very accepting. So I don't have any apprehension about it. I'm marrying her anyways.
Well,
it's nice that she comes from a good family as well.
Absolutely. You get the family too. That's part of the deal.
So I haven't met her sister yet, but I have done the FaceTime thing, and just a wonderful family all the way around. So,
and I love Sean's mom. She's Ree is just the coolest cat in town. She's a hard.
And I heard about the carrot cake. Got the carrot cake.
Carrot cake. There we go. Famous.
Yep.
The famous carrot cake. Just love her. I love her spirit, and she's tough, and she's got a big, big heart. I like loving her. Yeah.
Well, it has been a privilege, Sean, to take some time and talk to you. This is our first chance to really have a conversation, and really happy for both of you. You guys sound awesome. Sounds like the real deal.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to hear about what's on your agenda next, Trent. Sounds like you're more than at peace with your decision. I don't know all the ins and outs, and I imagine I'll talk to Sabrina more about that. But you mean a lot to her, so it's important.
It's a work in progress, this life that we're living. So whatever comes is supposed to be. I'm my wife and I both have had the experience multiple times over the course of our relationship of just being able to look in retrospect and see how things have happened the way they've needed to, and we've been richly blessed. So I've no reason to doubt that we won't be provided for things going forward too. So
It's awesome.
anyway, life is good.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.
Please help us grow our audience by rating us or writing a review on iTunes. To do that, you can use the link roominthetrees.com/iTunes.
You can follow us on Instagram at Sabrina Ward Harrison and at Trent Reynolds Art.
And check out the show notes at roominthetrees.com, where you can also get in touch if you have any ideas you'd like to share.
Rate us on iTunes and share Room in the Trees with a friend.
With a friend.
With a friend.